first tell everybody kind of what we've been doing, what we're working on this Families Battle. If anybody is on here and you're not part of the Families Battle on Facebook, please connect with Angie so you can see how we're kind of rolling out this new interaction, or making it so that we can introduce a topic on a Monday and maybe interact with the topic on Monday and Tuesday. Throughout the day, you can look at it and see the comments other people are making and kind of create a thread with the writings, and then hopefully roll into the topic on a deeper level Tuesday night. I don't know if I'm always that way because I have a short attention span and I change up what I'm doing, but that was kind of the way it was supposed to work this week. But I don't know how many people are truly getting on there and looking. So maybe if you could just go get connected with the Families Battle, and it's a private group, so you can feel free to share. Isn't that right, Angie?
Yeah, and it was brought to my attention last week, actually, Lisa Breyer, that she never even knew about the Families Battle. So not everybody is really Facebook savvy, but it is just a private group. It's been around since the beginning of days. That was our name way back then when we started the Families Battle. And it's just a private group, and it is for the loved ones. It's for the family members. It's not for those in recovery. So for any of you guys at the Big House or any of the houses that have reached out and tried to join, the reason why I haven't accepted your request is that reason. So don't take it personally, but it is just for the family members, and it's a private group on Facebook called the Families Battle. So all you got to do is click join and I'll accept you, and there you go. And there's a couple of you that I know that aren't on Facebook, like the K.O. Maddoxes and then John Swanson. So like you guys are, I have a mental note I sent them a screenshot of your message, Art. So if there's anybody else out there that absolutely is not on Facebook, I'm happy to add you to that little list that I text the screenshot to. And you just need to send me a request of that and say, hey, I'm not on Facebook, text me.
So the way that we have to really look at the way this started, and you know, we were if you're new on here and you see this guy Art and he's talking, and I think that you should just be as shocked as I am that I'm in this position. So it was never something that I sought out or really like thought of myself as somebody that would teach this stuff. But the reality is that it all started through kind of a not a so understood. You know, I think part of the problem in my life is, or in all of us, is that one of the things that we have is that we're when we're sure about things, and whenever we're really sure about things, that seems to be when we're farthest off track. And I think when we started out dealing with people in addiction and families in addiction, what I can tell you is we were really sure about things. We knew right from wrong, and we knew what it was about, and we knew what people needed to do, and we knew what needed to happen, and we knew it needed to happen now, and we were really sure about things. And as the time goes on, what ends up happening is you get less sure and more philosophical about things. And I think as we've went on, we've opened up to being philosophical about things and less sure about things. Even the fact of everything that you thought you knew, you didn't know. And eventually when we started this thing, we really thought that drug use was a big problem. And we thought that was the only problem. And then we needed to solve that. So if we could just get people to stop using drugs, then we would be successful. And so we sought out on that endeavor, and it was at all costs that we would just eliminate drug and alcohol use. And if you were using drugs and alcohol, you needed to kind of get away from us. We aren't here to help you with that. We're here to make sure that you don't do it. We were very sure that somebody using drugs was sick, or somebody using drugs was still sick and they needed more help. And then somebody that wasn't using drugs, well, they didn't need help because they weren't using drugs. But in a kind of a long way of going about this thing, we learned over time what the truth was. The truth is that there's not only that there's deep, deep suffering, and not only is there suffering here in our program or with the drug use that we see here, the families that come to us that are suffering, it's not just us, it's everywhere. And what ended up eventually happening is this turned from an addiction organization called Battlefield Addiction, and this turned from the solutions to get one to stop using into solutions to not suffer. And that's what Now Solution Group is. So if you're joining us on a Tuesday night, I will also tell you that I would find it, I don't find it that, I find it almost enabling that if we were to solve your addiction problem, that would then, and you live that premise that if we solve this addiction problem in your family, that then your family would no longer suffer. I find that a lot like trying to sell you a new car. I find that a lot like trying to sell you a house. I don't think that the cause of our suffering is addiction. I think if there was no suffering, addiction wouldn't have showed up. And I think addiction showed up after the suffering. And so to be as philosophical about it as we can, to say, well, wait, is it an almost a poor scenario? For instance, if a human being goes in and has a knee problem, a very bad knee problem, if we just cover up the pain and make that pain go away, that doesn't address that there's a problem in the knee. And this could end up to be worse damage later on because we don't address the problem with the knee. So that's kind of what we found out. And we need to really move over in convincing you, although you come here for us to solve your addiction problem. I want to tell you that I don't want to do that for you, truly. And that's hard for you to hear because you came for answers and I don't. And that's why we wrote what Angie's about to put up. And I want to look at it, take a look at it tonight and see. And this was written on Monday. I wrote it Monday. And this is kind of where the organization has went. And this is now the purpose of what we do. You want to read it, Ange, or?
I think I can do both. Yeah, hold on, I can do, yeah. Okay. So this work provides for the possibility to end suffering before the addiction is ended. With addiction being the master and the family being the student, the process begins. We humans tend to believe that we suffer from the way it is. However, when seen more truthfully, we see that we never actually suffer from the external. We suffer from the mind being in a disagreement with the current moment. Let's consider the possibility that transformation is not about gain of any sort, but rather a truthful return home. Once discovered, one sees that they never left. So we begin to play with the current moment, a now-like practice. If now only occurs with me, I maybe will discover that I actually don't need to be in the now, because I already am the now. When our mind accepts the way it is, we form an agreement with the current moment, a grateful connection with the now, which allows for calmness and ease. When present moment awareness takes priority in our lives, the difficulty will show itself. We begin to see that resentment, anger, righteousness, self-pity, worry, and panic have in fact been our pain relievers. As we transform, we learn that these pain relievers are possibly just as harmful as our loved one's drug use. Just as one may use drugs to get rid of their pain, the family must stop using too.
You know, when I was a kid at my house, I grew up with a very wise father. And when there was any kind of disruption or difficulty in our family locally, we had about 80 deep my family that was local around here. I had 28 first cousins. I had 35 second cousins, and my dad had 7 older sisters. So that was a big deal. But I was thinking about my house today as a kid growing up, and one thing that was always true was when I came home after school or I was away and something had happened. We'd found something out, there was some difficulty in the family, there was an event or an occurrence that was lost or gain or whatever it was. My house was still. My father would be at the table with a cup of coffee. My mother would be, the coffee pot would be on. Something would probably be in the oven to eat later, like a casserole or something. And everybody, there would be no television on, and everybody would be sitting around the table. And then one by one, family members would come over, whether it was we found out somebody's sick, or we found out that somebody's using drugs, or we found out that somebody's going to prison, or your little cousin died, or whatever it was. There was a wisdom to the way that it was handled in my family. And there wasn't, in those times, there wasn't the possibility that anybody could live distracted. And there wasn't the possibility for panic. And there wasn't the possibility for that kind of way of being. Hold on real quick. Just silence the phones. We shouldn't even be able to see that somebody's called. Just leave it off, Trev.
Hello, sir.
Oh, having a few little bumps here. Would be. Anyways, so tonight, with the reading that we just did and what kind of, please go downstairs, you guys, tell them to go down.
Go downstairs.
With the reading we just did, and I think that there's a part on there that's highlighted, and I want you guys to all note, and this is going to be a very difficult pill to swallow. So there's 2 parts tonight, and the first one is to see that there is suffering in all this, and that it possibly would be a mistake if you don't learn to stop living the premise that suffering will go away when and if and only if these particular external things in our life will change. And that premise is a false premise. So I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page, that what we're all trying to do here, drug addicts, people who aren't drug addicts, family members, is what we're really looking at here. And the real issue is just simply suffering. And then the other issue is that we're constantly, as a nation, as a group of people, as America, as Seattle, as politicians, as Democrats, as Republicans, everything is just this means to try to push away the suffering. It's this inability that we've all developed to sit still. It's this inability to wait for wisdom, this inability to wait, sit calmly, and wait for the wise answer to show up. Instead, we argue just to argue. We blame just to blame. And it's just this seeing of, I heard a story. I heard this story today. I was listening to this book, and they told this story in the book of this guy in a boat. He's in foggy water. He can't see. So but he ends up bumping into another boat. And the 2 boats bump into each other. And the man that's steering the one boat, he says, "Why the hell don't you look where you're going?" Well, then the boat kind of bumps up again to each other, and he sees that nobody else is in the boat. He just hit an empty boat. And that's kind of the thing, is immediately when there's suffering in our life, there's got to be blame. So this blame and this suffering and finding the cause of our suffering, it's this continual premise that it must be something external and that we must actually chase it away. We must get rid of it. We can't sit with it. And it's very ironic too, because you see everybody that wants drug addicts to quit using drugs. It's like, hey, You need to quit using drugs and be able to sit with your pain. And it's the great advice of all people that don't use drugs. You need to sit with your pain. You need to actually be able to handle yourself in life and accept the way it is. And they tell us that as people that don't use drugs. But see, a lot of people don't understand that drug use isn't the only pain reliever, and that actually our resentments are a huge way for us to get rid of our pain. You know, the term venting, that's where it comes from. You know, when we have anger and we're looking to blame and we get fixated on who's to blame for our current suffering, then we vent out our suffering and we're not willing to sit with it. So we blame other people for the way we feel. And you just see it. You just see that guy who runs into the boat. He says, why the hell? There ain't even nobody there. Even if there's nobody there to blame, we seem to want to find somebody. So I think that blame is this way of accepting the way it is, but as long as it's not our fault. It's like too much pain to just say, you know, it's the way it is. Too much pain. Hey, I hit the boat. Too much pain. It's so much easier to accept the way it is, as long as the way it is isn't our fault. So I think that the key to tonight and where we're going here is to deeply understand. I want somebody that doesn't understand why we get so high off our resentments. I want people to understand that this week we've been talking about it ad nauseum at the Big House about resentments, and I'm telling you, there is a true high when we're fixated on the person to blame for our current suffering. There's a high in it. There's an actual way to avoid the way we feel, the way to take away and center our attention on something and to fixate on it. And it's a true high in resentments. And I want people to see the whole formation of a resentment, the way that we blame somebody else, so now we're better than them, the way we let ourselves off the hook, the way that we get high and takes our mind off everything else in our life other than that person and that problem, and the whole thing about venting that out and getting it away. So I find that it's not drugs that are number one pain reliever. It's resentment. It's complaining. That is the number one pain reliever in the world. And people are using all the time and then telling other people not to use. You know, once you get over this idea that you have to sit with yourself always, and there's nobody to blame for the way you feel, once you get that and really grasp it and understand that there is nobody to blame for the way you feel, that's deep and it's tough to sit there. But you'll see that it's almost impossible to sit there because you'll have to find somebody to fixate on. Find somebody to blame currently for the way you feel. And if it wasn't addiction, it was your parents. And if it wasn't your parents, it was your teacher. And if it wasn't your teacher, it was your boss. And if it wasn't your boss, it was your coworkers. And hasn't there always been somebody currently that you're fixated on blaming for the way you feel? And the truth is, it's the same solution for all of us. Quit using the external. Sit with the pain. Eat it. Feel it. Feel the way you feel without the mind soothing you. Don't let it soothe you. Everybody want to let their mind soothe them. You know, I'm in deep pain because my kid's an addict, but I've got it figured out that it ain't my fault. Now I feel better. Well, where you at? You're still at the same place. Your kid's struggling with addiction. Well, it was my ex-husband. Now I feel better. It was his fault. It was the kid's fault. It was whoever's fault that we got next. Who else is driving the boat that we hit? So here you are, all of us, everybody. What's going on today? Everybody here having to do the same thing. 1, admit their suffering. 2, admit the reason that we're suffering is not because of somebody else's dilemma. The actual reason we're suffering, the truth of our suffering is that we feel insecure. We feel not loved. We feel not validated. We have this sense of not being safe. And that's always been there. And nothing is going to take that away. Nothing is going to give us this sense of safety other than, right, please? Other than actually learning to secure your own energy. Learning to sit there. So, you know, my house lately, it's like we've seen it, you know, and I've seen in this time of this pandemic, I've been exposed to suffering on a level that I haven't been exposed to before. I mean, truly, I'm feeling it. Other people are feeling it. It's deep. Unless you're away from people and isolated, I don't know. But for me, there's been a deep sense of other people's suffering, and I felt it deeply. And as I feel more suffering, and I feel it dumped on kind of around, and I feel my own, and I feel all the bubbling of other people's suffering, I'm really enjoying it. I'm really enjoying sitting in silence with myself. I've been able to put everything away and kind of just quiet my house down with some wisdom. You know, that's the other thing that we don't talk about enough. Where's the wisdom? Where's the wisdom in our politics? Where's the wisdom in our family? Where's the quiet wisdom? Where's the sitting still and having it and accepting the way it is? Just sitting still, accepting the way it is with quiet wisdom, and then actually just discussing together with some quietness how to connect on a deeper level and where to go next. But there's so much in the way of that wisdom, and there's so much in the way of quiet, and there's so much in the way of all of it. What's in the way? Petty, self-pity, righteousness. You know, that's the number one thing that I found, that people are too righteous to change their life. You know, you look at where these organizations, civil rights organizations, and animal activist organizations, you know, PETA, these kind of places, they are going to face a dilemma. They will all face the same dilemma, whether they want to be right or whether they want to win. And that's the thing, is some of these organizations have gotten too righteous to do anything about it. Everybody can't stand them because of their righteousness. And instead of just saying, hey, wait, we want to make a difference. And a lot of us are too righteous to do anything about our life. We're too busy blaming to make a difference. Too busy finding the cause that's not us to be able to make a difference. If you get it figured out what the cause of your family's dilemma is, and you name who the problem is, we're still here. Because after you get it named, I want you to write it down 100 times and we'll figure out where we're at. We'll be in the same place. We'll still be suffering. But you'll feel a little bit better about yourself. So here we go. This is about really getting down with some pain. Really getting as quiet as you can get and sitting with it. Really, really, can you take on other people's suffering and shut the fuck up? Can you do that? Can you take on somebody else's pain and quiet your mouth? Because it's hard. I can't do it all the time. But can you take it on and sit there quietly with wisdom? Can you absorb somebody else's pain, or are you busy dumping your blame on somebody else? Are you busy figuring out who the problem is so it ain't you? Protecting the way you look. No, it's quiet. It's wise. It's calm. It hurts. There's no venting. We do suffer, but we don't suffer from any external cause. We suffer because the mind just will not let go of the fact that it needs to be different. The mind is constantly telling us that it's supposed to be different than it is, when it is how it is. So we push away. You know, as soon as you try to push away suffering, you reinforce the suffering. Look at anything that you've ever done in your life to eliminate suffering. It has reinforced the suffering. So as soon as we push away suffering and aren't willing to sit with it with calm wisdom, we reinforce the suffering. Now you can all look as parents, anything you try to do to take away the suffering of your kid or your family, how'd it work out for you? I guarantee it reinforced the suffering of your family. The only answer, the only solution that we have to offer you is to sit there. And I'm sorry, that's the way it is. To sit there and be with yourself. To learn to suffer before the external thing. To learn to not suffer before the external measure is taken. It's the work of a lifetime, but if you're not even engaged in it by now, and we're still here living the premise that the suffering will end when the addiction will end, well, that's how it started in the first place. That's what happened in the first place. That's what got us in this predicament. Trying to take away our suffering and reinforcing the suffering. So I didn't ever understand as a human being when they told me that anger was a racket, it wasn't real. I didn't believe them, but I do now. When they told me that worry was a racket, that it wasn't real, it was just something, worry, it's a tough pill to swallow, but I'm going to tell you, when you tell somebody that you're worried, you're actually just explaining to the person that your life seems to be more important than theirs. So worry is a racket, resentment, a racket, drama, pain, all stuff done to avoid sitting and feel the way it feels. I'm so worried as somebody that vents that's not really willing to sit with how it feels to worry. I'm so anxious as somebody that has to say I'm so anxious just to make themselves feel better rather than sitting with anxiety. If we're gonna actually ask a drug addict to quit drugs, we better be willing to put up. We better be willing to do something on our own right. You better be willing to sit with more of your pain, because that's what you're saying to somebody, is that they need to sit with more pain. And if you're willing to say that to somebody else, then you better be willing to sit with more yourself, and you better stop venting it out. Better stop complaining about the way it is and start accepting it. And that's the work. That's the work of all of us. You don't want to suffer anymore, accept how it is. Don't wait for the external thing to change and create more suffering. We see so many parents really not even really understand, pull their kids out of treatment because they're really not even, they really wouldn't even know what to do if they had to be without a problem to blame. They need it. We've seen it. You might have to look at your own life and see if your kid's out, do you really want a solution? What does it mean if it goes away? If it goes away, you have to sit with yourself. If they get better, you might still be sick. It's tough stuff. But if you don't understand it, that's fine. Look, it took us a long time to get to the place where this was about. It took me a long time to be able to get honest enough and not be your hero. That's what it is, really. If I tell you you come to Battlefield and I'm telling you I'll solve your problems for you, that might be some heroic enabling bullshit that I'm telling you. I ain't going to solve your problems. I might be able to teach you not to suffer. That's all that we're here for. And it took us a long time to figure that out. Now, if the addiction goes away, hopefully in the proper form, that's just a byproduct of somebody not suffering anymore. And if it doesn't, that should let you and your family know that there's still suffering that's not being dealt with. And use is happening. So I hope that confuses you, because it should. And I hope it makes it so you don't understand, because it should. And I hope you get real righteous with me, because that's fun too. But the reality is, I'm seeing it now with cell phones. I've always thought they've been a problem, but I've never seen anything like this. I've never seen the level of discontent that leads a human being to not be able to function without a device, to not be able to let it go. And I'm talking about, if you tell people, we might have to start hospitalizing folks in worse than a detox. If you tell people they can't have their cell phone tomorrow, that is worse than telling a human being that they can't have drugs. I promise you. I've never seen anything like it. I see Dave Z on there. If I tell Dave Z he can't have his cell phone tomorrow, I got to put him in a hospitalization situation. I got to hospitalize him and detox him and strap him down, because he ain't going to make it. And that's tough. And we see it all over. This cell phone thing's worse than the drug use, I'll tell you that. People can't even go over to a stranger's home and talk. They'll go to a stranger's house if they're meeting for the first time and get on their cell phone. Now that's insane. My dad would have lost it in his house if he came and did that. So it's not even normal anymore. But I think we've normalized living our life distracted. We've normalized no longer connecting with each other. There's got to be a stimulant going on of some sort. And people are arguing just to resent. So if you look on Facebook and the cell phones, they're not trying to prove a point. They're not trying to win. They're not trying to actually articulate an argument that would make a difference in the world. They're actually trying to post something that gets somebody else to say something that goes against their beliefs so that they can resent for a couple hours throughout the day. It is intentional. And so if you see politics or whatever, nobody's trying to accomplish winning. Everybody's just trying to resent each other. And they get high off of it. And you see it going on, and it's a sickness because we all, as a distraction to the fact of sitting calmly with ourselves. The entire issue is our inability to sit calmly alone in a room with ourselves. It's too much. So we're all here. We're all here tonight. We're all in the same predicament. I don't care whether you use drugs, food, resentment, complaining, sex, porn. I don't care what you're using to alleviate the suffering. Your cell phone, Facebook arguments, debates on Facebook. I don't care what it is that you're going after. You're trying to get high. I don't care if you use blame to get high. I don't care what you use. It's all avoiding the way it is. So here we are. And this is about you guys, about everyone here learning the same things. How do I sit still? How do I go deeper into this experience of being with myself? How do I resist how do I sit there and put my phone up in the bedroom? And can I feel that gravity? I think our phones have an all new type of gravity. It's like a new gravity. It's like that gravity that pulls people to their phone. Whether their phone is in the bedroom, we know exactly where our phone is. The panic when we're missing it. Oh my God. You know, the fear of driving away without your phone and that utter sheer panic when you feel your pocket, you don't have it. Oh my God. And tragedy of not having it for an hour and thinking that we're going to come back to a whole new life that we missed.
So true.
I mean, the insanity of it, the insanity of the phone. So here we are. We're all here on the same page, I hope, the same page that we suffer from restless, irritable, and discontent. And as we suffer from a feeling of, as Ram Dass says in his book, he says we all have a spacesuit on. We were given a spacesuit, we learned how to operate it, and very quickly we figured out it didn't fit right. And we've been struggling ever since. And it's kind of a prison we're in. This restless, irritable, discontent, constantly looking and searching for a way that we can feel more than we are. And you just see it, especially now. So, yeah, that's the discussion, hopefully. And I hope we can keep that. I hope we can keep the eye on the ball. And I hope that when you bring us your cause of suffering and you tell us the external, I think we got to keep the eye on the ball of your suffering and just keep it right there. And then if we can just teach you to not suffer, the bonus will be when the addiction goes away, it'll be even nicer. But it won't be the end all. It won't be, the other bonus will be if we can teach you to not suffer. By the way, addiction does seem to go on for a lot of years. If you're only on year 3, just wait. You probably got 10 more. If you're on year 10, hey, you might have 5 more. You know, it seems to go on a while. Hey, and also if your kid is doing really well or your loved one is doing really well, don't worry, that'll change. See? Don't worry, that'll change. If your addict is doing really poorly, don't worry, that'll change. If your addict is doing well, don't worry, that'll change. It'll always change. So we be prepared. We have an agreement and an acceptance of life before it even happens. Prepare for it. It's not going to go your way. Guess what? All right.
So good.
I found it hard to swallow the pill that my anger was just a front for my superiority. I found it very hard to swallow when they told me that my panic and my worry was just forms of self-pity, that I was trying to turn my life into a bigger story than it really was. I took that as a hard pill to swallow when I heard it at first. When I told me my resentments were just another form of my superiority, and I was just trying to make myself feel better by pointing out somebody else's flaws. When they told me that, it was a hard pill to swallow. It's tough to take. You want to fight it, but that's what it is. All of our resentments, it's this superiority ploy. I'm better than you. Trust. You must earn my trust. There's a racket. Jeez, might as well just tell somebody outright that you're a way better human being than them. Let them know the truth. Think about trust. Just say it. I think that I'm a way better human being than you are, and you've got a lot to do to even get close to my level. I don't trust you. It's pretty bad. Truth. What we're up to. Okay.
All right. So this is where we open it up, and we would love you to join this conversation. What are your thoughts, your questions, anything that's not clear? This is the time to say something. And to let me know, okay, I'm going to come to Riley Cobb first. And so the way that you get my attention and let me know that you have something to say is there's a raise your hand, and there's Belinda's next. The Hartmans, and then Teresa. Okay, I love it. All the hands are going up, and so there's a feature, raise your hand feature, and you can click that, and I'll get to you. And if you can't figure out how to use that feature, then you're just going to wave your hands when when you can, and you'll get our attention. You can unmute yourself and say something and all that kind of stuff as well. So first we got Riley. I'm coming to you. I can't quite unmute you. Can you unmute yourself?
Yes.
Whatever.
Can you hear us?
Yes. So it's Riley
Okay.
and Sabrina.
Yeah. Yes.
Hi guys.
I had a question, but she wanted to say something too.
Well, I was just gonna say that we have like a question, comments about it. So we're kind of having like a difficult time where like I've been complaining to him or venting to him, and I think that like most of the times it's coming like because I want him to like see my point of view and then like change. And then me and Riley were talking about it, and I think what Art said about like drama, I think when I go to talk to him, it's like I don't get the reaction, or I don't see any change, so I keep doing it, and then I think maybe subconsciously I'm like just doing it to add drama, not intentionally to add drama, but maybe more to like grab his attention, but not in the right way.
So, and then like my question was like kind of, where's the line? How do you tell like, so Art was talking about kind of like getting high off of like, of bitching at somebody else, kind of like so I can blame like a big thing for me for years was like my resentment towards my football coach for kicking me off the team. But I was the one that was shooting heroin and doing coke and stuff before games.
Yeah.
But that was my big deal. But now like so I'm focusing on that, and that kind of brought that back up for me to think about, because I still think about it to this day. Anytime I see an old player on my team, I'll start getting that feeling. But so what kind of we were talking about was like, she's always just, I'm doing something wrong and I need to see her side of things and stuff like that. And where is like the line between her kind of bitching and like her getting high off the drama and like having a resentment towards me, or like her actually venting and like wanting me to see, I don't know,
like change, wanting to see change, that's all. And the resentment from just like the years of us being together and the relapses and all of this, So he thinks I'm like complaining too much, but I only do it because I don't see any effort onto his side. It's a lot, sorry.
Well, first thing is that that we want to make a difference. So let's start there. For instance, like let's say that Riley, you'd like to make a difference in the relationship, right? Or no, you're not Riley. She's
Sabrina.
Sabrina.
Sabrina and Riley.
Sabrina, you want to make a difference. Okay. So let's start there. That you have this idea that you want to make a difference. Now, as you take a look at when you talk and when you want to talk. So I would argue that you're speaking from a place of upset, annoyance. You're speaking from a place of, I need to talk, correct? Wow, that's tough.
Sorry, I muted them because there was all that noise and now I can't unmute them. Sorry.
Unmute.
Okay, there we go.
So you're speaking from a place of, I need to talk, and I bet when you're doing it, there's a feeling that you need to explain this to him, because if you don't get it explained properly and he doesn't make this adjustment, then it's going to be your guys' demise.
Exactly, yes.
Okay, don't do that. When you're in those when you're in that mode, that's where what you're doing is trying to get your pain out. And there's no real strategy to it, or no no, the reason I know is because I do it. So I'm not sitting here telling you. The reason I know is I make the same mistake and then realize it. I'm just understanding of the mistake. So if you really want to make a difference in the relationship, you gotta, in order to make a difference, we have to come from a different place with people. In order for our point of view to be explained, it has to be from a place of calmness. It will never be from a place of urgency. You see? So, and then there'll be a give and take to the conversation. I will take some of your point of view, and will you slide over and take a little look at mine? When we find ourselves in these upsets, we need to talk, there's a sense of urgency, you must see my point of view or we're going to be at a demise. That's when you're not eating your pain. That's the line. That's when you just have an inability and you're blaming him for the way you feel.
Yeah.
You see? And that's why we are met with such disturbing feedback. That's why it never comes across beautifully. That's why the other person's looking at us like, you're a nut. Calm down. Right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Then we just get more and more aggravated because we want the person to immediately soothe us.
Right. Yeah, that's true. And I mean, I've done that before. I was kind of like, I got a little bit better at doing that. And now that you say that and like reflecting, and I remember the times of when I came to him in like a calm, like I was just calm, you know, like I didn't have any like bad feelings or anything. And that's when I was able to get my point across. So you're right. And I guess I just kind of let that slip by and I forgot to do that. So thank you.
But by the way, I'm not telling you something like, just go ahead and do that. I mean, I'm telling you something like, I'm sitting here saying like the way to win is to score more touchdowns. It's pretty obvious. Now, the ability to score more touchdowns, that'll come from a different place. So now, how do we go to this next level, and how do you develop a practice in your life to sit with the little pains in your life so that you can be more calm in the bigger scenarios? And this is you on your own getting to know yourself when you're upset, and seeing that nothing good can come from those things, and that you just want that upset to go away and you want something to soothe you, and that's drug use. That's exactly like drugs. So we want our friend who we can call on the phone, and talk about our drug addict loved one that they have a drug addict loved one, and we want to call them, and then we both want to soothe each other about how bad we got.
Yeah.
And that's just more drug use. That's just venting out your pain and putting it on something else. So it's all fine, by the way. I'm not saying that we don't need to taper off this. That's what we worked on today in group, was we're not just going to take on all the pain of the world and just start sitting with it. We're going to kind of taper off it. We're going to wean off of complaining. We're going to wean off of resentment. We're going to wean off of using our upsets and our blame. It's kind of a weaning off. It's not like cold turkey.
Right.
Cold turkey might have you start using drugs. You never know.
Well, thank you for that.
Thanks, Art.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Really love having both of you. Thanks for participating. It's great.
Oh, of course.
All right. So the next we've got Belinda and Chris Hartman. I have unmuted you. Go ahead, guys.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
You have to unmute me?
Yes.
You can? Okay. I just wanted to say, I agree with Art that if we can't come to a place of like not suffering in the moment, regardless of what's going on externally, no matter what, you're going to always worry about the other shoe to drop. You know,
Yeah.
I always
Yeah.
thought if I can get Jared into treatment, then everything would be fine. If I could get this, everything would be fine. But then Jared gets to treatment and then I'm like, how long is this going to last? Oh my God. Is he going to come home next week? Is it, you know, so it's you just got to come to just this, like, I'm going to find this place of peace and of joy. And I'm going to sit with this regardless of what's going on. Because the thing that really hit me was 2 or 3 weeks ago, as silly as it sounded, the thing that stuck with me the most is Art said, if you're running from a bear, you're okay as long as there's one person behind you.
Yeah.
So I have this person at work that I like to complain about all the time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, that's me. So I don't have Jared to complain about anymore because Jared's in treatment and he's doing really, really well and it's all good. So now I'm going to go like, okay, I'm going to turn to this guy at work and I'm going to bitch about him because I need this complaint in my life. And I'm like, oh, I have to be okay where I'm at with what's going on and stop that, because I'll either find someone else to complain about or I'll just sit here living in this weird fear of the other shoe to drop kind of thing. So it's just been just like, okay, just stop. You just got to stop with rest. Chris says rest, just like, this is where I'm at right here. This is good. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yes. Yes.
It's that.
Yeah, let me mute her again. And I'm muting you, Belinda, only because when we talk, it comes back at us. Go ahead, Art.
I think it was, I think it's really beautiful. And I think that's the purpose of this thing, and to see that the mind is never at ease. And I mean, I love that we, you know, when a group of people get together, the good people. So I always love it because I seem to always, no matter what group I'm in, that's the good group. And when me and my friends that are the good group, we get together, we always need to talk about the bad group. So you'll see that that's going on everywhere. And, you know, there's all this ways to eliminate kind of resentment. But one thing that we can do is kind of see the comedy in that we always have somebody to complain about. I was talking to the kids today, and there was I had to do work crew when I was younger because I was a criminal. And so I always had to go do work crew or whatever it was. And we had to go underneath a bridge and clean up after the homeless. And we were in the midst of cleaning up after one guy's camp, and he came home right in the middle of it. And of course, there was newspaper covering up the piles of feces, and there was needles, and there was all kinds of paraphernalia and trash. And he said one thing. He said, guys, I know it's pretty bad, but if you think I'm bad, the camp down the way is way worse. So even he, under the bridge, is going to the bathroom outside, was able to look down and find somebody else to complain about to make himself feel better. And that's what we do as people. So we actually need our adversaries and our enemies, because without them, what would we talk about? If we aren't talking about our resentments, what do we talk about? We have very little to, you'll see it gets kind of quiet when you're not talking about the poor coworker with the other coworkers. Gets kind of quiet at home if we're not talking about our drug addict kids. Gets kind of quiet everywhere if we don't have resentments to speak of.
Okay, great. We've got Teresa Seymour. I'm coming to you. Okay,
Democrats,
it
Republicans.
will not let me unmute you, so I'm gonna have you do that.
I got it.
Teresa. Hey.
All right. My question is actually from my brother, Troy McCannon, Travis's friend.
Yes.
He didn't want to ask. I wanted him to ask anyway. Either way, I'm asking. So we had an encounter, not this last weekend, but the weekend before, where Troy made some poor choices. He made some poor choices and then made some good choices. He bought some booze. And I tried to do what you said, and just, it is what it is. I just said, well, you know, you need to think about your choices and decide what's the best thing to do. And he tried to justify it by saying it was NA beer or non-alcoholic beer. So it was, you know, whatever. He knows my opinion on it is, you want NA beer, then you'll end up drinking regular beer. And his beer always comes with a bottle of rum. So I tried to sit with it and just go, you know, make your own choices. And then my mom found out and reamed him a new one. So the next thing I knew, I was driving down to his house to get all the booze. He didn't drink any of it, but he wants to know specifically, Art, your opinion on NA beer.
You know that,
And I've unmuted Troy as well.
you know that meme that's going around and it says, it shows a picture of the world, and then it says the picture of the world before your opinion, and then it shows the picture of the world and it's the exact same, and it says the picture of your world after your opinion.
Yeah.
That's it.
Well,
I actually have some stuff.
you need to put that in a way that might be easier for Troy.
You need me to put that in a way that might be easier for Troy.
I do.
Yeah, I got, yeah.
The only thing I heard from that was Troy didn't drink any alcohol.
That
I
is true. He
was,
did
but
not.
not no more.
Okay, did you drink any alcohol, Troy?
No, I'm 3 months sober as yesterday.
All right, that's all I hear from it then.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You're my man.
I'm
He
always
does
getting
want to
in.
know your opinion on NA beer.
It's just opinion, no biggie.
I don't drink it if you want to know that.
That was less alcohol, right?
Yeah, I don't drink it. If I'm gonna stomach tasting a beer, I'm gonna get drunk. I'm not gonna.
Well, I do get drunk when I do rum with my
I don't do
beer.
fake heroin. I don't do fake beer, and I never done fake cocaine.
I don't need any cocaine. I just do all the beer and rum. That's about it.
Well, you all right, Troy? I don't know, Teresa. Time will tell.
I got her to stop smoking.
Yeah.
He did. I quit smoking, and so we're kind of doing this together.
Yeah.
And you know, we try to support each other.
Teresa, you quit smoking?
I did.
Okay.
Because I thought, if I'm going to ask him to quit drinking, expect him to stop doing something he loves, I should stop doing something I love.
All right. You drink any Coca-Cola?
Do I?
Yeah.
I drink Diet Coca-Cola.
Oh, you drink the fake stuff. I see.
Yes, I do. I like it.
Okay. There you go.
I do.
Well, Travis is my man too. So you guys know.
Travis has got some comments on fake beer.
Yeah, so I think sometimes we lose kind of sight of how serious our situation is. Like going to the store, opening the cooler, and grabbing fake beer. I mean, it's like an inappropriate person at like a funeral. Like this is it's a somber, like serious thing. Like we're humbling ourselves and we're trying to take back some control or something. And then to make that small sacrifice, it just seems inappropriate.
There you go, Troy. Travis says no fake beer.
I heard you, Travis, loud and clear, man.
All right.
Good, thank you.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
I've never drove to the dope house and asked them if they had
Yeah.
any fake
You
drugs.
still be some fake shit.
Yeah, guess how many fake stuff? I just want to feel like maybe I'm kind of doing it.
Yeah. Here's $40.
Yeah.
Okay, Ty?
All right, I'm coming around to look at the faces. Who's next? Oh, is that the bars with a question? Did I see that hand waving? All right, I'm coming. I'm trying to unmute you. I need you to unmute yourself. Hey, guys. Oh, we can't hear you. Yeah, now you're muted. And now you're unmuted.
Go on to the next.
Yeah, there's no sound coming from you guys for whatever reason, Ron. I was having that problem earlier with using you as my tester. Just no sounds coming. Sorry, guys. All right, we'll try again. Just say something in just a bit, and we'll try again if no. All right, guys, who's next? I see some new faces. I see some old timers that haven't been here in a while. I saw the Hunsuckers, and now I lost track of them. I saw their name, Julie and Steve Hunsucker. Are you still here?
Yeah, we're here.
Hey guys,
How's it
how are
going?
you doing? We need an update. What's going on?
We're doing fine.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Can we see your face, or you don't? Oh, there you are. Hi. Yeah. Fantastic to see you.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. So what's going on?
Well, we missed Art's face.
Yeah. We missed
Up there. Thank you.
Yeah, we miss his words. We miss his wisdom. So yeah, we thought we'd start tuning in with the new Zoom rage with all the quarantine anyway. Why not jump back in on these meetings?
Right on.
When you said that, there's about 20 kids at the big house that just rolled their eyes.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Not to hear me.
Joey said the other day that he misses you.
Oh man, I missed the kid. How's
Yeah.
he doing? You okay?
Much, much, much better.
Yeah, kids being Joey. Yeah, it's good.
All
Gosh,
right.
how old is he now?
18.
He's 18.
18
Yeah,
now.
community college courses, taking his relationships in his life a lot more seriously.
Beautiful.
Fantastic. How about your daughter?
Tuesday.
She's
Sophie.
Sophie, she's a pain in the ass. She's great. She's almost 15. She's a 15-year-old drama queen. That's what she is, a 15-year-old drama queen. She's good though. She's a wise soul. She'll get through this, wisen up, and girls.
She's doing better than she has in the past.
Yeah, and she's
I'm gonna keep it. I got a bed for her at the big house too.
she would have that place ship shape though, little miss control. She would take it on as a project. Are you kidding me?
Yes. Beautiful.
Yeah,
Nice and tight.
we're good.
Wonderful to
It's
see your
good to
faces.
see you. Yeah, we're gonna try to pop in more.
Right on.
Thanks
Well,
for
and I just got your request to join the family battle too. So if you ever miss it, guys, I post the recording on the family battle every week as well. So
Okay.
if you're ever, of course, it's always better live, but if you can't be here live for any reason, it'll be there.
Okay,
Awesome.
great.
Awesome, guys. All right, I've got Lily's question here via text. Lily's question, great question. She wants to hear it directly from Art, or you, but this is for Art. Why did you start the big house?
No. We had about 8 houses prior to getting the big house. There was 3 houses in Browns Point. And we had a couple in Auburn, and we had one in Kent, and one in Renton, and one in SeaTac, and one in Federal Way. And there's 8 or 9 houses that were spread out. And then we just kind of got a sense that people needed to be together. And people needed this. People needed time to be in a place, and we wanted to do it our way, and we were very naive, and we just cranked it up, and it wasn't safe, I don't think, back then, really. It was kind of a real party house. We didn't really, there was a lot going on, and we had little supervision. We had naive expectations that when people came to a sober house, they wanted to not do drugs, and that was a mistake. And so it just evolved, and the place was here. And I fought for, I found the place a year before I got it. And it took me 1 year of calling these people on a monthly basis and convincing them that it was my house, that this program, that I needed to rent it. They wanted to make an adult family living home. And I argued with them for a year and finally convinced them to give it to me. And I called the lady every month for 12 months and persisted. And then finally she called me. And when I saw the phone ring, I said, oh, she figured it out that she's going to give me the house. So we did, and we opened it up, and you know, it was a way to get into the treatment business. We had the treatment center, and we needed a place for everybody to be. And this was it. It worked out beautifully. I used to have an office right down in downtown Des Moines. Prior to moving to Federal Way, our office was in downtown Des Moines, so it was like 4 minutes from here. So we just run them down the street to the office and do treatment. It was a lot cooler. But the office was outdated and small, so we had to get a bigger venue. Anyways, we thought we'd be good at this. We didn't. We were naive. And then once we got into it, we weren't very good at it. And then we figured out how to get good at it. And the way we figured out how to get good at it was to work on ourselves. And that was what we did. We found out that clients were going to be the same next year. And if the place was better, it'll be due to the fact that we've gotten better. And we waited on the clients to get better. I think that they don't change they're the clients. They got the same issues that they had 5 years ago. We're just a little bit better at handling them. Was it 5 years ago?
Yeah, well, November will be 5 years. And for anybody who doesn't know what the Big House is, Big Change Recovery, the Big House is the starter house. There's, I think, 35 beds there, and that's where they start. And then that's where they have the program. And then the outer houses are in the different communities that they graduate out to at a certain point, usually after 6 days, and then they graduate out to the sober houses. So,
by the way, it started with we could afford, when we opened up, we could afford a table. We had a table, a sectional couch, a TV, and 4 beanbag chairs, and that was what we could afford. And then we bought beds one by one as we could afford them and set them up. But if somebody moved in, they may or may not have had a bed. They may have just had a mattress.
good old days.
Yeah.
In fact, it was November that it opened. The Big House opened in November, and it was a week before Thanksgiving. And I believe it was the day before Thanksgiving that the kids were putting the table seat, the legs together, and installing the stove, I think, the day before Thanksgiving, so we could have Thanksgiving there.
I moved in to monitor the place, which was a tragedy. And I moved in with them, and then we woke up the first day the Big House was open, and we forgot one thing: we did not have any food, and we had nothing to eat. So I had 20 people here with me, and we had nothing to eat. So 20 of us walked over to Safeway, and then I figured out I'd made a big mistake because breakfast cost me like $148. And then
it was only $500.
And then as soon as breakfast got over, I came to this conclusion that lunch was going to happen. And I was like, oh shit, now lunch, and then dinner, and it wasn't stopping. And so we had to figure out how to feed everyone, which was the first challenge. Yeah. Okay, more questions?
All right, who's next?
I really like the top questions that we're getting and people, so.
Yeah, great. I love seeing all those hands raised instantly. That was fun.
The writing that we did will be up. If you could please go over, join the family battle and look at it tonight, maybe comment on it. We got a little interaction going on there. There won't be a new one until Monday. I found I can't do one of these a day. I got really think about it a bit, I guess. Next question.
All right, next.
Looks like Kathy Washington had her hand up.
Oh, great.
good.
Yeah. Art loves Kathy. Let's see. Let me find her. Hi, Kathy.
Hi.
Hey.
So tonight's topic is really perfect timing because I am reading Eckhart Tolle's book, A New Earth, and I was on the chapter of the pain body, and very similar to what you're talking about and how the pain body within all of us feeds on resentment and it feeds on drama. And the tricky part for me is you're talking about sitting with your pain and your suffering, and you might have to wait a few years. If
Well,
I,
Go ahead.
how do you balance, how do you justify in your mind that's a good idea? You referred to it as suffering always being related to a sense of superiority. But what about being related to a sense of loss of control? And how do you maintain a patience for years and years and not feel like you need to have a sense of control? Like we want to control our decisions and our choices about what we eat and who we decide to see and blah, blah, blah. And if there is no control, then why would anybody, let's use a person with an addiction as an example, if they didn't feel they had any control over their choices and decisions, why wouldn't they just give in to every impulse?
Great question. First of all, it comes into several parts. One thing that first and foremost that I want to address is that the suffering lies in the mind, and that the suffering lies in this illusion of control, or this illusion that we can fix the way it is. And this thing about sitting that people aren't maybe grasping what it is that when you're sitting with suffering, it's to keep the focus on the body. It's to understand that the suffering happens in the body first. You know, when we have a loss or when we have an upset, or an anger or a frustration, it always happens first with blood pressure. It happens with blood pressure. It happens with the muscles tightening. It happens with an injection of cortisol. It all happens in the body. Then the mind takes over to protect the body. So the mind says, you're feeling this way because. So it says, your muscles tightened and your heart rate pounded and the cortisol injected. You don't feel safe. And all that's because so-and-so is doing that. This is a re-engineering, and to be able to sit, you're actually sitting with the experience of suffering. You're not suffering. You're sitting, as a witness. So are you suffering, or can you witness the suffering? Can you witness it? And then if you can witness it, who's suffering? You are the witness. So it's a waking up and it's saying, look at it as a whole human experience. It's not, we will suffer inside the mind as long as we try to soothe it, because the mind is sitting there saying the way it is shouldn't be. And the reason it's doing that is because it's already experienced something inside the body that the mind is trying to protect us from. Fear and insecurity happens in the body first. Then the mind steps in to say, this is why you're feeling this way. And so if somebody's attacking me verbally, it'll happen in the body first. You know, you pull up like that when somebody does something. If there's road rage, if there's any kind of upset, any kind of anger, it'll happen in the body first. Now, the mind's response to what the body's feeling is blame. The mind's response is resentment. And the mind tries to soothe itself by saying it's a superiority play. So anytime you've ever experienced anger, afterwards, the mind says, one, that's not my fault, it's theirs. And two, I behave better than that person, and that person should behave better. So you'll see that's the mind's way of protecting the injection of But when you learn to sit, okay, there's anger. I'm witnessing it in my body. Okay, I'm just a witness. I don't become angry. There's frustration. It's right in my body. There's what it feels like to observe a loss of control. It's all actually moving to this witness position during the experience and seeing that the mind is working to soothe you. And then what people do is they try to soothe the mind with the mind. And that's also, in my opinion, that's also a mistake. That's trying to fight our chatter with more chatter. The only way to fight the chatter in our mind that's got us all upset, notice when you get angry, there's also a starburst of thoughts. There's just an immediate, sonar on the world about who's doing it. And so you have to be keen and aware of these body experiences prior to the mind taking over. If you don't, the mind will just take over and it'll go through its thing. The mind will take over and it'll first build a case. After it builds a case, it'll tell you that you're not the problem, they are. They shouldn't be like that. How come it's like that? After it's built its case, it'll then remember all the bad this person's done. It'll come flooding in at once. It'll build the whole case, and then you'll have a tendency to want to go vent. So you'll want to discuss that with somebody. You'll want to let it out. And that's too late. That's the whole process. The process starts with feeling the frustration, feeling the suffering, feeling the resistance, feeling the muscles tighten, feeling it all in the body first before the mind gets to work. If the mind gets to work, it's going to try to protect you from that experience. So it's turning inward and experiencing the whole body, the whole being, the whole everything. So when somebody was attacking me on the phone, verbally telling me I wasn't good at my job or whatever they were telling me, I was breathing and feeling my body. I was feeling the pounding of my heart, the blood pressure, and I was saying, there it is. There's high blood pressure. I don't like this, but let's sit with it. I was feeling my muscles tighten. I was feeling it all and learning to accept how the body feels. So it's a big process. The pain body gets activated. If you can say, there's my pain body, that's what Eckhart says to teach the kids. He says, if you have a youngster, to teach them about their pain body, when they get that eruption of resistance and pain, and the pain body comes up and explodes, he teaches the parents to tell the kid to name it like Bob. And he says, hey, there's Bob, and Bob's the pain body. So now you got this youngster, he's 8 years old, and he feels frustration, and he feels anger, and he feels it all, and he's able to sit there and just go, oh, there's Bob showing up. See, it's not him. He doesn't have to become it. It's beautiful, really. That book is amazing. If you haven't read Eckhart Tolle's The New Earth, in my opinion, then you got to get at it. Probably tonight, I would suggest it, or tomorrow. It's an amazing book, and it is a truth teller, and it will transform you just by reading it. So thank you.
You can get on Audible and listen to it.
Yes, I have it on Audible.
Yeah.
Oh, but yeah, it's body work. It's blood pressure work. It's not mind work. This suffering is in the body first. There's no mind to it. If your mind's involved, you'll screw it up. The mind can't stop blaming. It just can't. Our mind never sits there and goes, you're the problem. It doesn't do that. Doesn't even say easy, relax. It says get excited. You're threatened. Your life's in peril. You're doomed. Then you listen.
I have to share this morning when I was pulling out, I was kind of turning in my driveway. My car, I had it pulled up more forward than it normally is my spot because Tim washed my car the other day. And that's so kind, right? He washed my car. It's so cool. Well, he had me park it a certain way. And I'm not used to it. So this morning when I went to go get my coffee or whatever, I almost hit the fence. And my mind seriously went, oh my God, it's Tim's fault. It really seriously said that. And it was just so crazy. It was just searching for it's just something else's fault that I would back into the fence. because I'm not used to being right there. And it's just crazy. Like 2 days ago, he had me pulled there because he washed my car and it's his fault that I'm going to hit the fence. It was crazy.
But even before that, right before the mind blamed, your body had a reaction. Your muscles tightened and fear shot through your body. And the first thing that happened was the fear shot through, and the non-safeness and the insecurity and the I'm not loved, and the whole thing came through right before in an instant. And so if you didn't notice, the way to actually do this work is to actually see that experience in the body before you miss it. So you missed it. If you miss it, then it goes right to that blame. I mean, we can always roll it back around and kind of replay the incident, but the reality is that we miss it. And that's why when we're intensely doing this work, when I was intensely doing this work of learning about my experience, and when my body had an experience and my mind took over and I started yelling at somebody, or I got frustrated or angry and made a mistake, I had to be quick on my feet, and I had to be very aware of what was happening with my muscles, my blood pressure, my cortisol level, everything that was happening prior. Felt like when I snap at somebody, it feels like a bottle rocket shoots from the bottom of my heart and pulls me right out of my chair. Like a bottle rocket of anger just shoots. And now I'm able to sit back and watch that bottle rocket fly by. And I can feel the same thing happens, but I feel it fly by. But maybe Tim is to blame, man. You better take a look at that. Yeah.
All right, we got 5 minutes left. Is there one more person who's got something to share? Tona, it's good to see you on.
Remember the story when we started this thing out. The guy's in the boat, thick fog, bumps into the other boat, doesn't know there isn't anybody even in the other boat, and then he says, "Why don't you look where you're going?" That's it. That's the whole process right there in an instant. The mind blaming somebody that's not even there. And that's why, because when our body has a terrified experience, when we're filled with anger and insecurity and resentment, when we're filled with insecurities and fear, anger and resentment are our pain reliever. That's how we relieve the pain. We let ourselves off the hook from the experience. It wasn't our fault. It's so-and-so, it's them, it's that. That's why I'm feeling this. And the whole re-engineering is that when we have an experience that has upset us, and that we can feel that process, that we attribute it only to our insecurities, only to our own fears, never to the other person. That's the only way out of this thing. That's the only way to get rid of the pain body. As we do that, the pain body diminishes. The pain body gets smaller. We learn to chip away at it. But as we continue to blame, the pain body gets bigger. And it goes the other way. Okay, you got someone?
Yeah, I have a text question. One was, what book is that? It's Eckhart Tolle, A New Earth.
Or Tolle, people call them everything different.
Tolle, Eckhart. Eckhart also has Power of Now, which is also on our recommended book list. We do have a recommended book list in the Family Battle private group, the same group we've been talking about. If you just click under File, you'll see all of our recommended book lists. There's some really good ones on there. And yeah, I do have another question via text. So not just releasing with complaining, venting, but isn't it also your chatter giving you the go-ahead to do some kind of behavior like yelling, threatening, taking revenge of some kind to act on or to act out, like abandonment, ignoring, name calling, an excuse to justify your actions and behaviors because someone did something and or said something you felt wronged by? Same thing, right? Is the question?
Yeah, I think it's very important to acknowledge that standing behind every resentment, standing behind every yelling, every bit of losing it on people, every bit of sarcasm, every bit of belittling, every bit of complaining, standing behind all of that always is our own superiority. And it's all the same premise. I'm better than you and I behave better. And it is the way that we get off the hook. It's the way that we soothe ourselves. And we never look upwards in those times where we're upset. We never seem to go, look at all the people that behave better than me. We just look downward at people who behave worse. So I think that, but yeah, all of it, every action that we take comes and stems from every negative action and every hurt we put on people and everything that we say that we regret, everything stems from an insecurity that we feel not enough. And as we feel not enough, our body begins to protect us and our body begins to tighten the muscles, pound the heart, shoot the injections, and then begins to chatter in the mind. And then we say frantically, as if we're at some ultimate threat for our demise, we begin to treat the person like a threat to our demise. And we end up treating our loved ones like a very threat to our life. And we speak to the people we love in a way that we wouldn't even speak to our coworkers, in a way that we wouldn't even speak to anyone. And then we apologize later when wisdom returns. Wisdom returns in about 7 minutes if you haven't noticed. Go outside, take a walk. It'll take about 7 minutes. That'll be about the time frame before your lid is back on the dome. But yeah, we flip the lid and there we go. So it's a fun process of keeping the human experience in the body and outside of the mind. And there's wisdom in the body. There's intelligence in the body. And by the way, you're not the mind anyways, so why go in there? You just look at it and see. So we sit with it. But I can tell you that it's body work, it's not mind work. And it's muscle work and it's blood pressure work, and it's nothing to do with the mind. If you're in the mind trying to fix the mind, you are screwed. It's like a really bad plumber that's flooded your house saying that he's going to fix it. It's probably not going to happen. He's the guy that screwed it up. So the mind screws it up, and then the mind tells it that it'll fix itself. It's not going to work. And eventually we get tired of that process, and we use drugs or we use whatever we can to get outside of there. So haven't you ever noticed that a resentment, you go away? You know, when a drug addict uses drugs, we all know this. We take drugs and it's like a foreign installment comes in and says, hey, jump in my car. Let me take you for a ride. And so the drug is like a foreign installment. It comes into our body and it says, get in the car, and it takes us for a ride. And we don't come back until the car stops. And that's resentment also. It says, hey, get in here. Come in for a ride. And we go away for like 8 hours, or we drive in our car and we fixate on them. And it's a whole nother level of high resentment. So there it is. It says, get in the car, ride around with me. Let's talk about what a piece of shit this person is. Just come on, build the case with me. And then watch when we come back from it. We vent it all out. We get rid of it all. We puke all that energy and all that trash talk up on somebody else that will kind of take it in for us. And then we kind of come back like a helium balloon that's lost all its air. And there we are. And we go, oh, then it all goes away. And we go, I don't really feel that way about so-and-so. I actually really love them. Wish I wouldn't have said all that. And there's the process. But we're just protecting ourselves with those resentments. We're just soothing ourselves. We're just making ourselves feel okay. And we're using drugs. That's the exact same thing. Anyways.
We are at time, which I hate because this is such a good conversation. And I see so many faces on here that would have something great to say here. I just know it, and we're out of time.
We encourage everyone to jump on the Family's Battle and say your comments and questions there. So we can continue the conversation. And like I said, as we started this thing out tonight, this was never our intention. As me and Angie started this solution group, we were going to talk about how to solve addiction. That was the focus. We knew how to solve addiction. We knew how to get them into treatment, and we knew how to take the pain away, and we could be your hero if you gave us 5 minutes. But now we're seeing that this isn't about that, and that we need to keep the eye on the ball of our individual suffering and have each one of us, all the people in the program, all the people on here, all work in the same program of experiencing and not chasing the suffering away, but learning to sit with it, learning to sit with it, learning to be with it, and learning to provide wisdom in every situation, to be able to be calm. And when things get the most difficult, that's when we get the most calm. Isn't that the opposite?
Huh?
Things begin to get the most, things begin to get the most difficult. That's what I was trying to explain about my father. I still admire it to this day. When things got the most difficult, he got the most quiet. And I love that. And people just kind of do the opposite. When things get the most difficult, they get the most loud. And I think we need to really work on this wisdom and calmness thing and stop using. So once again, it was an honor, and thank you for everybody to come on. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, everybody. Get on the family battle. Let's continue this
Thank
conversation
you.
next week. We'll see you next week. We'll unmute everybody so everybody can say bye. It's always fun. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Big house. Let's put them on spotlight.
Bye, Eleanor.
There's the big house.
Where's our hi?
Wait, let me ask Mom. We just want to get out. Hey, Mommy. How do I get out of here now?
Bye, Birdie and Steve.
Just show me and then maybe I'll remember.
Jared, hello.
Hey, Jared.
Woo, hi.
I saw it. Like,
Good night, everybody.
things too. Like,
Night, bye, everybody.
Yeah.
Good night, Emmett. Good night, Elliot.
Bye, everybody.
You know what?
Bye, Dad.
Hi, Sammy. Hi, Sammy.
She's over there to get treatment. Okay, bye.
Bye, Jake.
Good night, everybody.
Hi, Angie. Poochie Mom.
Who's that? You can't just have to watch.
Good night, everybody. See you next
Good
week.
night, Irene. Good night.
Good night. Good night.